Hello and a very warm welcome to one and all on Candid Conversation with me, Shikha Verma. I'm a global happiness and mindfulness coach and a training consultant with good 20 years of experience. This series aims at bringing the best of the best global practices and insights to you, under the overarching theme of leadership, well-being, and happiness. And today our topic will be success in leadership. And I'm so happy to welcome my guest today, Dr. Evi Prokopi, who is from Greece, and she is an award-winning success coach, an HRM professor, and a Harvard Business Review advisor as well. Thank you, Dr. Evi, for joining in today and accepting my invitation to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Shikha, for your invitation. It's great to be here and discuss a very important topic about success and leadership today.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of talks have happened around similar kind of subjects, but I want to bring in some newer perspectives around it. And I see your experience is pretty rich. You've worked with people across 58 countries, and you've also worked with organizations like Google, HP, Johnson and Johnson. So I'm intrigued to understand, how do you see success and growth? And have you kind of experienced this evolving over the recent past? Because a lot has happened over just the last 3 years. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think that both success and growth are subjective. To me, success is to be true to yourself, to follow your own principles and values, and ideally to inspire some people and create a better world. That's the ideal definition. When I talk about success, actually, and I try to explain how this is subjective, I bring up an example of a friend of mine. My friend is a professor at the Greek vet medicine school here, and he completed his PhD with a full scholarship by the Pasteur Institute. Mm-hmm. I've known him for about 20 years, and what I love about him is that he's covered in tattoos. And at night, he used to play in a hardcore band. And people, we all have sometimes unconscious biases, and we tend to judge based on looks. But it doesn't mean that if someone has, let's say, tattoos, piercings, weird hair colors, it doesn't mean they're worth any less. And it only means that they enjoy their personal life. So yeah, this is success to me. I once had pink hair. I once was a fire juggler. People would give me weird looks back then, 15 years ago. But yeah, I think it doesn't matter. I mean, it's very important to stop judging based on looks. I think we should actually look into the people and see their own value. And when we have stopped caring about weird looks and how others perceive us, we just prove our worth more easily, and that's success to me, because we remain true to ourselves. We don't change so that other people like us. And sometimes even I express some not so popular opinions and beliefs and ideas on LinkedIn, but that's me. I mean, I'm not going to change I'm not going to censor myself so that more people like me.
So it's more about alignment, like you said. It's more about living your values in every way possible. I love that. And how about growth? What's your take on growth? Do you see that differently?
I think growth is a lifelong process. Once you've started this journey, you'll never finish it. You will just keep growing. And regarding the evolution of growth and success, I think that as years go by, I see that, the more you work on yourself, the more you'll keep working. And the only thing that has changed to me over the last years, personally speaking, is that I share more of me with people on LinkedIn, and this helps people. And I regularly receive messages about people who feel encouraged after what I'm sharing with them. With my LinkedIn posts, for example, and my own personal experience. And I think that's one way to give back to the community. And apparently sharing is caring. So that's one thing I've noticed that has been evolving over the last years, for me at least.
Lovely. So growth is more about learning, like you said, more outward and more to do with giving back to people and, being on that journey. Um, Surprisingly, there are different perspectives. I'd like to, share my own outlook on that too, because I see success more to do with the goalposts I've had in life. So for example, I was younger. It was more about the scores that I would get in my school. And then during my 20s, it was about making my career, and getting a good paycheck, let's say. Later on, it was more about settling down, getting my house, getting a car to myself. And eventually in 40s, it's become more around purpose, passion, and service, for me. So I feel success is more about that evolution that you go through and the movement in terms of what you want to achieve more outwardly, while I see growth more inward. It's about my inner growth, it's about my inner transformation, it's about my evolution as a person, which is lifelong, like you just said. So there are varied perspectives, and it's so evident. All of us have our own unique ways of looking at these two concepts, really. So for me, growth is all fulfillment. It's more about that inner happiness, let's say. So I'm just wondering, this is a very big dilemma. A lot of people think success brings you happiness, and a lot of people think happiness brings you success. What's your take on that? I'd love to hear it from an award-winning success coach like you, Dr. Evi.
So this is a very interesting question. And as a matter of fact, in my first book, which is based on my doctoral research about success, I have extensively looked into it and talked about how people relate success to happiness. So based on my research, what I found is that success leads to momentarily happiness, just for a few moments. Many people, most of the people feel happy when they achieve a goal. But as time goes by, people get used to this achievement and they start pursuing another goal, moving the goalpost, as you just said, or they start focusing on unpleasant situations. But success and happiness have a lot more in common than we would expect, and they both need hard work from our part, and they're both subjective. What is success to you? What is success to me may not resonate with any other people on this planet. And we often have this tendency to confuse, to get this mixed up, that we consider what others consider success and happiness, and we press ourselves to do things that will not offer us either. We see, for example, we buy expensive smartphones, clothes, cars, and so on, because our friend or because a celebrity, an influencer who we admire uses the same, or because we perceive that these people are successful. So in order for us to be successful, we need to buy this latest, very expensive thing. But what we need to keep in mind is that when someone owns something expensive, it doesn't mean that they're also happy. Maybe a company gave it to them so that they could advertise it.
We invariably draw that parallel, that it's about possession, it's about, looking like a star yourself, or, enjoying that kind of a stature. We mistake that to be happiness of that person, which is not true, like you said. So that's interesting. So you do think that happiness brings success, right?
Yeah, actually, I would like to add a few more things, especially apart from a biologist regarding this.
Sure.
So yeah, I was saying that, no matter how much we charge our credit card, it doesn't mean that we will become more happy. And success brings moments of happiness, but it's not what makes us remain happy forever. Because happiness is a state of mind, and happy people seem to achieve success more easily because they think positive. They're not afraid of hard work because they have faith that whatever comes, they will just overcome it and they can achieve it. And as Thomas Edison had said, I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 different ways that lamps won't work. So that's the mindset we want. And talking about biology, there is this biologist, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who said that our fate depends on the pictures we set our mind to. And he claims that these pictures that we hold in our minds are translated by our brain into chemistry that complements these pictures. And this chemistry is then put in our blood, and our body responds to these pictures accordingly. So Dr. Bruce Lipton has said that our cells can be either in growth mode or in protection mode. They can never be in both modes at the same time.
Yes, yes.
And when we have a picture of fear in our mind, our brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone, because our body is in protection mode, and we may even have physical symptoms like our stomach may hurt, we may feel dizzy. But on the other hand, when we think of our plans, of dreams, because we want to achieve success, we release the happiness hormones, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. So based on this biological fact, happy people achieve success more easily.
Awesome, awesome. And that actually is backed by one of the recent studies also, where the armed forces, almost millions of them have been studied. It's an extensive research which just got released. And they've also proven the same scientific fact that it's always about, happy people getting more opportunities for themselves. They're the ones who end up contributing more. They're the ones who end up growing, therefore, in the system faster as opposed to the others. And it's quite evident that it's always happiness that begets success for you and not vice versa. And yet we are caught in that trap. Somewhere I feel this outlook has a bearing at the workplace too. So I want to go from that life perspective into what happens in a office kind of an environment. How do you see this outlook impacting workplaces with respect to how people behave as leaders? And does it impact their team's performance too, according to you?
Okay. If, let's say, someone is not satisfied with their own lives, if they don't feel happiness at all in their personal lives, these people, it's quite probable that they will find it hard to perform well, let alone lead people in the workplace. Leadership is about motivating and inspiring people. So how could someone motivate me, and how could someone inspire me if I see them complaining all the time, or taking things or people for granted, if they never show any gratitude? So in my humble opinion, we first need to increase our self-awareness and identify what is happiness and success to us personally. And then we need to cultivate our self-leadership before we are able to lead others. And for the people who are not familiar with self-leadership, it's basically about steering the wheel of life toward our goals. And this is how we can become a role model with integrity. And this is how we can sprinkle positive vibes and make others to want to give their best. So if a leader is not happy and is grumpy all the time, this means that they will not be able to tolerate failure coming from either themselves or from their team. But if this person is never happy and always finds things to complain about, maybe they will set unrealistic expectations, unrealistic standards, and they will do this both for the team and themselves. So
I'm so glad you
will
said
end
that.
up exhausted.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I can relate to it, Dr. Evi, working in corporates for almost 20 years before I started off venturing into my Vibrant Vibes consulting work and, what I love doing now. I did see a lot of these instances where managers would weigh heavy on their team members and setting this unsaid rule of staying back late, doing stretch hours, creating that anxiety and stress, within the team members for doing more, even if they've worked efficiently during the day. And that's causing, I think that's why today we hear the term of psychological safety too. We're all talking about psychological safety because somewhere there is an unsaid norm or toxicity that people have started to feel on a constant basis. And to my assessment, I see a lot of it percolating down to the root cause of how they see life, how they perceive success and growth. Because I've heard some of the managers say things like, you have to compromise. Why don't you just let go of your personal life and focus on your career if you really want a promotion? Now, that's a very skewed and an imbalanced way of looking at life, so to say. And therefore, the implication would be more command and control style of leadership. and the subsequent result is toxicity or, issues like psychological safety. So all of it is interconnected. It's all coming down to that person who is appointed as a leader, who apparently is required to inspire, influence, and enable. Like you said, because they go into protective mode, that could be far from reality. So I do see a lot of challenges that perhaps people are facing today without their knowing what's hindering their growth or what's not allowing them to cope with the transition that may be required in today's workspace. Canvas has transformed. The entire workplace has evolved drastically over the last 2-3 years. So the requirements from leadership is a lot more, and the HR professionals are also trying to put in just the right pieces, to bring solutions to the organizations and make them thriving. But we know that there are challenges. So what are some of the challenges to your assessment, and how do we cope with that, as leaders per se?
Before addressing this question, I'd like to make a note, and you brought up a very important aspect, which also affects our success and happiness, and this is our health, our physical and mental health. And if this is affected, achieving either success or happiness is extremely difficult. It's a very, very strenuous work because our health is the most important gift we can have. And we discussed earlier about health and how it can derail us, and it's very important. So I just wanted to bring this up because
very important.
Yeah, there is no success, there is no happiness if we're not healthy.
Yeah.
So regarding the challenges, I think one of the most important challenges is that we need to bring the human element back to business in every aspect.
Totally.
Especially since I represent human resources, and we need to bring the humane element back, starting from recruitment. Because in recruitment, people, I've been there, I've done that. I've wasted hours in applying for jobs, and I've ended up getting a generic email rejecting me at best. Some people, myself included, we have never heard back from, the recruitment process. And this is cruel. And it gets worse for many employees once they join a company. They are bullied, they're overworked, they're exhausted. But this always stems, as you said, from the top management and the leadership. And I think that the way to go is through active listening, emotional intelligence, traits that people can actually develop and use at work. And even though technology is great and artificial intelligence is even greater, but at the end of the day, I hope we don't want to end up being savages. We want people at work to be able to come to us and talk to us when they have something that is bothering them professionally or personally. And we need to build trust and relationships based on trust. And we can only achieve this through regular and honest communication, either remotely or in person. It's pretty much the same nowadays. But that's the key to create loyalty and to increase both individual and organizational performance. And today's workforce, I think they look for employees, they look for leaders, who will be able to lead and create and foster a friendly environment. And they look for authenticity, which comes through empathy and sharing stories and being vulnerable, because we're all humans. I mean, we will all have good and bad times. We'll all have, a bad day. That's absolutely normal and perfect. But
how do we cope with this challenge? Because I do see a lot of us talk about it. We believe in it. We want to do it, but we're still not able to be all there as a human being, or just embracing our vulnerability, like you said, as a leader. It gets very, very hard. Somewhere I feel it has to do with our conditioning of being picture perfect as a leader, always having an answer, always having a solution. And, that kind of culture weighs heavy on your mind all the time. And hence, as a coping mechanism, we wear that shield of Mr. Perfect, and we start to, operate out of a space of control, let's say, instead of care. And that's the kind of challenge we might be facing in our personal lives too, because that becomes your coping mechanism, that becomes your reflex to any situation which can be threatening for you. Or let it could also come from a space of not being capable enough of giving to other people. So we have all types of leaders out there. Which attributes you would assign for for leaders to be you know demonstrating, so that it brings success to everyone? It's good for them, it's good for people, it's good for the organization. So the attributes that are an absolute mandate in this new era of workspace, and the new age workspace, like we call it, according to you.
Okay, so if I could say a few tips or attributes, I think the first one is to be yourself. Stop caring about what others say and be honest. Tell the truth. Learn who you are and defend yourself and your moral code consciously, because nobody's perfect. So, if we pretend something we're not, probably someone will notice at some point, and this will not go well. So be yourself, and that's the first thing. Be a great communicator and build relationships based on trust. So communicate with others and pay attention to what they're telling you, pay attention to their needs, understand and get to know them. And all this will lead to a great foundation of relationships, both at work and in personal life. And
I think I've
be
had some of
there
the
when
best.
other people need you.
Sorry.
No, please go on.
No, I'm saying I've had some of the best experiences too, Dr. Evi, with leaders who've been caring and giving, and more tuned to what our team's interest was. And they've actually evolved more as mentors for us later in our careers. So even if I'm not working with that leader today, I always look up to them. I always go back to them for advices. And these are the people who stick around in my mind today as the best of the best leaders I've worked with. So you're quite right on that. Others just appear to be managers. So I've always believed, it's all about being a happier individual. And that's what makes you a leader. Because if you're unhappy, you're bound to be a boss. And it's bound to bring more toxicity to your workplace, as a subsequent result. So I love the points that you highlighted. Listening, communication, and building those trust relationships and connect with your people. It's of paramount, importance. I would just want to add, being a happier individual also is critical attribute for any leader to bring that kind of a ecosystem into play, because if you're unhappy, I think it's far from reality. Don't you think so?
Of course, to be positive is one of the key attributes, and be positive doesn't mean that everything will always be great. No, we are going to have bad days, but we can just laugh and say jokes and show kindness to people with no expectations, accept people for who they are. We shouldn't try to change them, because they can all offer us great value at work and in our personal life. So one more thing I would add is to be a solution-oriented person, because in my opinion, there are two types of people in life. There are these problem bringers and the problem solvers. And the problem bringers are people who just complain about things without suggesting a solution. On the other hand, when you are solution-oriented, you identify solutions, you encourage people, and you express your gratitude. And because at the end of the day, you're going to find the solution, you have less stress.
Yeah.
You release less stress hormones. So yeah, I think that I would add that.
Wonderful.
Well.
That's a wonderful point, actually. Be a solution provider more than anything else. Any quick suggestion you want to share before we wrap up? Because we have very little time left, but I'd love to know if there's any best practice to foster future leaders that you'd love to share.
I will share with you one of the hardest exercises I give my coaches, and I ask them to just consciously stop judging for at least 2 weeks, because judging based on bias comes to us naturally. And right at that time, we need to hit the brake. For example, let's say we are on the street and we see a driver running through a red light. It is quite possible that we will be angry at this person, and we will think, oh my God, this driver is so responsible.
Yeah,
But if we stop, if we freeze time for a minute right there, we will realize there may be a case that this person is rushing to the hospital, for example. Maybe there is a slight case that this is true. We never
absolutely.
know what others go through. So please, yeah, if I could give a tip, just start observing more and judging less, because this way you'll end up judging yourself less. And we tend to be the strictest judge of ourselves. So this will help everyone because we don't need to judge ourselves so strictly.
I love that. And that's so important in today's life and age, more than ever before. I saw one of your recent posts where you're talking about aloha, and I love that acronym. I think this Hawaiian greeting has such deeper meaning. So if you're just able to do that kind of an ethos into your workspace, bring kindness, unity, agreeableness, humility, and patience back into play, that human factor that's required, I think we're sorted. It's been lovely having you in this conversation, Dr. Evi. And I am
Thank you
very
so
sure
much.
our viewers would love this conversation and take a lot from here. I would request all my viewers to stay tuned because there's more coming in this month. We're going to talk about your story and you with my guest, Dr. Linda Shaw, who's a psychologist in month of August. So stay tuned for more here. Thank you once again, Dr. Evi, for joining us in this
Thank you for having
conversation.
me here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Bye bye.